You know, usually when you think about a problem, right, like especially a psychological one like anxiety, there's this underlying expectation that there's going to be a finish line.
Oh, absolutely. Like a clear endpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You put in the work, you go to therapy, you read the self-help books, and eventually you cross this threshold, you slay the dragon, you finally leave the dark forest, and you step out into the sunlight where, everything is fine.
Right. The classic hero's journey kind of thing.
Yeah. But what if that entire framework is just fundamentally wrong? Like, what if the goal isn't to escape the woods at all?
Which is such a wild thing to consider.
It really is, and that is the exact paradox at the heart of this really fascinating new conceptual art piece that we're exploring today. So welcome in, by the way. I'm so glad you're here for this custom deep dive.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one.
Because the wild part about all this, right, is that this conceptual art piece and the intense collection of analytical notes surrounding it, it's directly inspired by Taylor Swift's song Out of the Woods.
Which, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily expect. Pop anthem to deep philosophy.
Great. From a pop anthem bridge, we get this profound philosophical reframing of human nature. Our mission today is to look at how this piece challenges the whole idea that we can ever truly escape our problems. It suggests a totally different model of existing. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yet, to even begin to understand the philosophy here, I think we have to visualize the physical object that anchors the whole discussion. Because the artist didn't just, paint a picture of
Oh,
tree.
they did.
They created a literal physical manifestation of anxiety itself.
So picture this. It's a polished silver ribbon, and it's twisting through space in this open spiral. It is sleek, it is modern, and it's just hanging there, suspended.
And the shape is, it's really the most crucial detail here.
Right, because it's neither a closed loop like a perfect circle, nor is it a straight line pointing from A to B. It's this continuous motion that suggests a path constantly renewing itself without ever truly repeating.
Exactly. And accompanying this physical spiral is a foundational text. It's simply called The Bridge. And it's written almost like a manifesto, really.
Oh, totally. It forces you to confront the shape of that silver ribbon through,
Words. Yeah, it states, the forest never ends, it resets. And we do not leave the woods. We move from one fire to another.
which is such a striking image. Moving from one fire to another, it just completely strips away the illusion of a final rescue.
It really does. And the text continues. It says, the chorus repeats because the river does. And light and darkness are the same road, arriving at different hours.
Man, those lines are heavy, but the line that really stopped me in my tracks with like the absolute paradox at the center of all this is the final line. It says, the moment you ask, are we out of the woods yet? You have already stepped back in.
Oh, brilliant. That is the ultimate psychological trap, just articulated perfectly.
Right.
Because the very act of checking to see if your anxiety is gone is inherently an anxious act. You are scanning the horizon for a threat.
Yeah, you're looking for the bear in the woods.
Exactly. And if you are scanning for a threat, your brain is in survival mode. You are back in the woods. The moment you search for the exit, you're actively participating in the anxiety that you're trying to escape.
It totally reframes how we experience panic because, well, there's another line in the bridge text that says, anxiety is not a glitch, it is the operating system.
Which is such a modern way to phrase it.
It is, and I was thinking about this, and it feels exactly like a smartphone software update. When your phone has a bug, or when, like, Apple or Google pushes a new OS version, you never actually delete your phone's fundamental operating system.
Right, you'd brick the phone.
Exactly. You just keep downloading updates to handle the new vulnerabilities. Your phone doesn't stop being a phone, and it doesn't suddenly become an invincible, flawless piece of technology. It just, learns to process the corrupt data differently.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, anxiety isn't some malicious virus you can just run a quick scan on, quarantine, and delete from your hard drive. It is the very code running the hardware.
What's fascinating here is how that open spiral perfectly mirrors another concept in the text, the idea that no one trembles twice in quite the same way.
Ooh, yeah, break that down for us.
Well, think about the geometry of a spiral, right? If you look at it straight from the top down, it looks like a flat circle.
Like a loop.
Right. So you might feel like you are just going around and around, repeating the exact same mistakes, feeling the exact same panic you felt a year ago.
Oh, I've definitely felt that.
We all have. But if you walk around the sculpture and look at it from the side, you see the elevation. While you were hitting the same coordinates on the X and Y axis, your Z axis has completely changed.
Wow. Okay, so you're higher up.
Exactly. You are higher up. You are looking down at the place you used to be. This framework shatters the illusion of a final cure or a final destination, and it replaces it with something far more dynamic.
So, okay, if we take that visual geometry, right, that idea of hitting the same coordinates but at a different elevation, how does the formal art world actually interpret that? Because we have a source here called the curator's note, which attempts to define the aesthetic tension of the silver ribbon.
Right. And the curator homes right in on that tension. The text uses this beautiful, somewhat contradictory phrase. It says, the form advances by returning.
Advancing by returning?
Yeah. It posits that each turn of the spiral resembles the previous one while remaining irreducibly different.
Irreducibly different, meaning like you couldn't make it exactly the same even if you tried.
Precisely. The curator points out that the movement appears cyclical, but no point is visited twice in exactly the same way. Therefore, the spiral refuses both arrival and closure.
Arrival and closure, yeah.
So the art exists entirely in the tension between recurrence and transformation.
Now, I have to admit, when I first read this part, I was pretty skeptical. Wait, is this curator just using fancy art jargon to describe being stuck in a rut?
Huh. I could see why you'd think that.
Because, I mean, advancing by returning sounds an awful lot like just spinning your wheels and trying to sound sophisticated about it. It sounds like a hamster wheel, you know?
I would actually push that analogy further because the difference between a hamster wheel and a spiral is exactly what the curator is getting at.
Okay, lay it on me.
A hamster wheel, or a rut, is a closed loop. It is a ditch you have dug so deep that you are just driving in a circle. The stimuli are the same, your reaction is the same, the outcome is the same. There is zero transformation.
Just exhaustion.
Right. But a spiral is a staircase. You are still turning in a circle, yes, but you are changing floors. You are accumulating history.
Oh, I like that. Accumulating history.
Yeah. You might hit a point in your life that feels exactly like a heartbreak you experienced 10 years ago. The scenery feels painfully familiar. But you are bringing 10 extra years of survival, 10 years of coping mechanisms, and 10 years of memories to this new iteration of the problem.
That makes the irreducibly different line make so much more sense.
Exactly. That is the tension. You are returning to the heartbreak, but you are advancing because you are not the same person who broke 10 years ago.
The circumstances might rhyme, but the person experiencing them has been permanently altered. Wow. Okay, so the art world sees this spiral as a beautiful tension between recurrence and transformation.
Yeah.
But how does that actually play out in human neurology? Like, if we are advancing by returning, what is literally happening in our brains when we hit that same point on the spiral?
Well, that brings us perfectly to our next source, the Ivy League note.
Right, so we are trading the art gallery for the laboratory to see how academia attempts to quantify this exact spiraling feeling.
And of course, in classic academic fashion, they immediately assign it a dense acronym.
Oh, naturally.
They call it the Recursive Forest Persistence Model, or RFPM.
I love that the author of the note even includes a little self-aware joke about that, saying, as everyone knows, acronyms are important. Without them, academic language would collapse into readability.
It's a great line. And it's a necessary moment of levity, honestly, because the cognitive science they dive into next is heavy. It completely upends our fundamental assumption about anxiety.
How so?
Well, we traditionally think anxiety results from uncertainty regarding future outcomes, right?
Yeah, like, we don't know what will happen tomorrow, so we panic today.
Exactly. But the Ivy League note argues the exact opposite. It suggests that uncertainty isn't the cause of anxiety. Instead, uncertainty is just the subjective experience of existing in a permanently recursive environment.
Wait, let's slow down and define that. A recursive environment. Basically, an environment that keeps feeding back into itself.
Right, like a loop.
It's the resetting force from the bridge text. So academia is saying we aren't anxious because the future is a blank mystery. We are anxious because deep down, our brains are incredible pattern recognition machines.
Yep.
Our brains know the environment is going to loop back around, and we are feeling the vertigo of anticipating that repetition.
Precisely. The brain actually hates a true unknown. It would much rather deal with a familiar threat than an unpredictable one. So it anticipates the loop.
That is wild.
And the Ivy League researchers have the data to back up how often we loop. They cite this highly specific, slightly surreal study. It's called a double one-eyed survey of 10,000 remembered crises.
10,000? That's a lot of crises.
Yes. And the numbers they found are just staggering. Like 88.4% of participants reported eventually escaping the specific situation they feared.
Okay, so a huge majority actually do get out of the immediate danger. That's good news.
It is, but here is the kicker. 91.2% of those same people subsequently encountered a structurally similar situation under a different name.
Wow. Here's where it gets really interesting, because I read that statistic and immediately thought of a very common real-world scenario.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Think about quitting a completely toxic job. You know, you have a terrible boss who micromanages you, you finally pack up your desk, you celebrate, you feel like you have finally escaped the woods.
Oh, I know exactly where this is going.
Right. Then 6 months later, you realize your new manager at the new company has the exact same toxic traits. They are just wearing a different suit and using different corporate buzzwords.
Yep. The new boss is the same as the old boss.
You escaped this specific situation, but you collided right into a structurally similar one.
I'm really glad you brought up the toxic job scenario because the neurological reality of that is actually darker and much more fascinating than just bad luck.
Wait, really? It's not just bad luck.
No, the researchers describe this as adaptive recurrence dynamics, or ARD.
Oh.
The theory suggests we might actually subconsciously seek out that exact same toxicity
Are you serious? Why would we do that?
because it's a known environment.
Yeah.
You already know how to survive a micromanaging boss. You have the coping mechanisms built in.
Oh, wow. So it's about familiarity.
Exactly. Your brain prefers the familiar stress of a toxic manager over the completely unknown variables of a healthy workplace, which you haven't learned to navigate yet. So the spiral illustrates ARD in action.
That is mind-blowing.
Although each rotation appears familiar, no position is ever occupied twice in precisely the same manner.
The note literally says, stability emerges not from escape, but from continuous reconfiguration. And the forest does not persist because we fail to leave it. It persists because change and repetition use the same path. That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, there's profound reassurance hidden in this academic jargon.
Reassurance? How do you mean?
Think about how much energy we spend beating ourselves up when a familiar problem arises. We think, I thought I went to therapy for this. I thought I was over my imposter syndrome or my fear of abandonment.
I'm back at square one.
Exactly, I must have failed. But if stability comes from continuous reconfiguration, if change and repetition use the same path, then we don't have to panic when familiar problems arise.
Because it's not a failure.
Right. It means the system is working as intended. The repetition isn't a failure of your character. It is just the geography of the human mind.
We are just hitting the same coordinates on a higher z-axis. Okay, so we've looked at the pristine silver spiral, we have parsed the art curator's aesthetic tension, and we've waded through the Ivy League's recursive neurological data.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But how does adaptive recurrence dynamics actually feel on, like, a random Tuesday night after a couple of beers?
Right, away from the textbooks.
Yeah. That is what our final source, the Barfly note, gives us. It strips away all the theory and looks at how the spiral manifests in the messy, grounded reality of just getting older.
The Barfly note is so effective because it lists the socially prescribed milestones we all use to measure if we are out of the woods yet.
Yeah, things like buying a house, changing careers, getting married, getting divorced.
Moving to a brand new city to start entirely over.
Only to discover, as the note so brilliantly puts it, that the woods have excellent public transport.
It's such a great line.
It's so true, though. No matter where you move or what life milestone you achieve, the woods commute right along with you.
It tackles this illusion of uniqueness we all carry. Because when you are in the middle of a crisis, it feels entirely unprecedented, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The sky is falling, and it has never fallen like this before for anyone in the history of the world.
But the Barfly observes, a few years later, you realize it was mostly the same panic wearing a different hat.
Mostly the same panic wearing a different hat. I love that. It is the exact same concept as the Ivy League's structurally similar situation, just said, with a lot less pretension over a pint glass.
Exactly.
The spiral keeps moving, but somehow never stops having the same conversation with itself. And the Barfly's conclusion is what really sticks with you. They write, maybe that's growth, or maybe it's just anxiety getting better at interior decorating.
It's a very punchy way to end the thought.
So what does this all mean? Because I have to be honest, I read that ending and part of me wanted to reject it.
Really? Why is that?
Well, is the interior decorating line just incredibly cynical? Like, are we really just doomed to sit in the exact same room of panic for our whole entire lives, just endlessly moving the furniture around to trick ourselves into thinking we've gone somewhere?
I can see how it sounds bleak at first glance.
Yeah. I try to think of it practically, like maybe moving the furniture isn't a trick. Maybe it's a necessary coping mechanism?
This raises an important question. It is very easy to read that final line as fatalistic, like we are just trapped. But I actually think if we break down the metaphor, it is a remarkably hopeful synthesis of everything we've discussed.
Okay, I'm listening. Make it hopeful for me.
Let's really look at what happens when you redecorate a room. If you move the furniture around, you do genuinely change the room. You change how you walk through it.
That's true.
If you move a heavy oak coffee table out of the center of the room, you stop stubbing your toe on it every single morning. The table's still in the house, but it isn't hurting you anymore.
Ah, okay.
You change where the light hits. You change how functional the space is.
Okay, I see where you were going with this. Like, if your anxiety is a deep-seated fear of abandonment, you can't just delete that fear from the room entirely. It is part of the operating system.
Right, it's code.
But moving the furniture means learning to communicate that fear to your partner instead of lashing out defensively. The fear is still in the room, but you have cleared a safe walking path around it.
That is exactly it. Connecting the barfly back to the Ivy League note, the different hat, or the new interior decorating, is tangible proof of adaptation. We survive by adapting the familiar into something we can navigate.
Wow.
The panic might be the same foundational emotion, that Taylor Swift bridge about moving from one fire to another, but how you decorate around it, how you structure your daily life to accommodate and manage that fire, that is the literal work of living.
You aren't doomed to the same room.
No. By moving the furniture, you are becoming a master of your own architecture. The room becomes yours, rather than a place you are simply trapped inside of.
That is a massive perspective shift. I absolutely love that.
It brings it all together.
It really does. So let's logically trace the journey we just went on. We started with a visual concept, right? A polished silver ribbon twisting in an open spiral inspired by the bridge of Out of the Woods.
Yeah.
We saw through the curator's note how that physical form creates an aesthetic tension between returning to the past and advancing into the future.
The tension of the staircase, yeah.
Then we moved to the Ivy League data, which explained the neurological mechanism behind this. Life is a permanently recursive environment where our brains anticipate structurally similar crises over and over, and stability is actually found in our ability to continuously reconfigure our response to them.
Adaptive recurrence.
Exactly. And finally, the barfly gave us the everyday reality check. We keep hitting life milestones, the panic puts on different hats, but we keep adapting by rearranging the furniture of our minds.
The ultimate takeaway being that the destination isn't the edge of the forest.
Because there is no edge.
Right. The destination is learning how to walk through the trees with better navigation tools each time.
I love that. I really do. And to that end, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering question to ponder on your own after we wrap up today.
Let's hear it.
If we fully accept the premise of the bridge text, that we are never truly going to be out of the woods, and that the forest is always going to reset, how does that shift your personal relationship with fear?
That's a great question.
Right. Because if you finally stop exhausting yourself trying to run in a straight, impossible line to escape the forest, do you suddenly find you have the energy to become the architect of it?
Something to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. We'll be back next time with more to unpack.